So something I know that I mentioned in the last video in this overall discussion is the idea of it being important to distinguish the difference between eternity and infinity. Now, even in my own kind of research or thought about those ideas, one, why does it matter? Why would it matter? What is the difference? Well, so if we have to parse through when you look through the definitions, but you do find that they're different, although a lot of times they are juxtaposed or both are used as if one means the other, although they don't mean the same thing. Eternity exists outside of time. Infinity exists within time. And it's so we'll start with infinity. So infinity is measured within the container of time and space. Eternity exists outside of time and space. Why does this matter when we think of things like duality and other elements of those types of things that we conversate about within good versus evil, that sort of thing? It matters because this gives us a place to point to that's outside of the story, outside of the perpetual state of good versus evil. It allows you to see the cycle that takes place, and that is the infinite cycle, the spiral that continues on and comes back to the top and keeps spinning around back into itself to tell the story of good versus evil, because it can't exist without each other. And the perpetuation, why is it important for the story to continue? Why is that the main important thing? Because it contains the emotional state in us. It contains it and funnels it in whatever direction it's desired to go by those that would seek to have that go a direction or a different one, using the types of platforms that we're using as well, even communicating this video. Um, so if we're seeking to be beyond duality, recognizing its healthy existence within nature, that it has purpose, we can see it, but it is not vibrating, or it doesn't have a frequency within our emotional state, however, what words we might put within that. Side note, keeping in mind the English language and any probably language that we're using is limited when we're attempting to discuss the types of concepts that we are here. Yeah, so back to infinity versus eternity. Which direction are we headed? Are we going to focus on the infinite cycle, or also called maybe the revolution, which actually the word means to go around again? Um, I just not here for a revolution, I can tell you that, not personally. And I hope that we can see past things like revolutions and look for the resolution, or the concept that moves us into that next phrase. These ideas aren't really new in the essence of what we're hoping to get to. The whole idea of even having these conversations, as if they matter, is really just to spur our consciousness in each one of us towards a thoughtful state that attempts to consider where we can get to, or also where we already were at some other point in time. Uh, and I guess once we consider ourselves our eternal, we're before the fall. I guess this would be kind of a question. Before the fall, as we might see it, uh, actually or poetically, it says we lived forever, we didn't die. So whereas were we in the eternal state while also operating with matter? um Another side question that I think about, I would ask, of any of you when it says, and God got Adam and Eve and asked, the first thing I asked him to do is name the animals. And I often wonder, you're sitting there with the actual entity that in, engaged this whole place into existence, and it's giving you this thing. Are we like seeing the code, like, and can kind of imagine anything into be almost automatically in this state? Is that what that was like? Is that what it's attempting to describe? Even the idea where it says you were made in the image of. And today we'll hear different scientists or different technological speakers and ideas out there that say we live in a holographic universe. And it's funny because if I think of just that, the idea of light and how light's mentioned in many of these texts, and then how that specific in Genesis where it says you were made in the image of, and image is kind of like what's making all this other stuff like holograms and other things. So it's funny to kind of think like, wow, I when they're saying we live in a holographic universe and then the Bible says something like you were made in the image of, it's funny to kind of maybe think about those in a certain way. As I wonder how connected they are. So yeah, I hope there was some pin put on the difference between infinity. So I'm not even gonna cut any of this. Like, I'm trying to look this up and be in the kind of midst of the talk while I'm talking to you, and get this right in a natural way. So I did. I looked up the words, and infinity. Um, it's within math though. So anybody else who has like any sort of comprehension and really looks at these two words with me, I'd love to get your thoughts as far as like checking this and seeing what I'm saying, and think like, okay, because I'm not that smart, and I just think about stuff sometimes and like am wondering. So um infinity, it's in here, it's focused on mathematics, it's focused on or representing a quantity greater than any finite number or an extent in time, space, or quantity that has no end. But it's in time and space. So it's recognizing time and space as a container, and then maybe anyone else who comprehends theories around may it be time travel or the movement of space and time and that sort of conversation. So that's infinity then, and that's that spiral, or that magic eight. That, not, maybe not magic eight isn't the right word, but the infinity symbol. Um, so any rate, if we look then and say something simple, okay, eternity, okay, limitless existence beyond time. So that's the whole thing of getting into some of these. You start to see this word beyond that starts to come out or permeate in this type of thinking that we're kind of exercising towards. And that's where I started getting into that once again, that whole idea of being a beyondist, and coming back into the now, which is where we're all at now at any moment that you're checking this out. So it's recognized as a distinction, but also seeing that. And there was another word I saw a phrase that I thought was interesting, that it's supratemporal. So that's again existing outside of time. Um, but then whenever you look at infinity, it seems to regard it mathematically, physically, or within time. So just wondering your thoughts about the consideration of infinity as a contained spiral. So this is why we have resets. This is why we have phrases like history repeats itself, because our behaviors are understood in a certain way, and we either get to a certain stage or we don't, and then it resets itself. And so we can kind of channel that idea into where we funnel our thoughts and our thinking. Do we keep them um, based in an eternal state, or our eternal state, or do we let ourselves get grabbed back into it, the infinite cycle and spiral that keeps turning and telling the same story, and and making an identity, imposing an identity on us instead of us using our eternal state to engage this presence here with our full imaginative state that we can present. Hopefully some of that makes sense, and hopefully you got some cool stuff to add in, because I'm out here learning, and this is a conversation I think that isn't out there a lot, and that's really why I'm putting it out there. So I appreciate the comments from the last video, and I'm thankful to be able to share this one again. So hope you have a great day. Bye.